righty. Well, I want to welcome you guys. We are in the education outreach section, so hopefully that's where you want to be. And we do have some great presenters today. And leading us off, we have Michelle DeHaven. She comes to us from Wichita State University Environmental Finance Center. And I'm going to read a little bit of her bio real quick here. Michelle assists the EFC with recurring and new federal, state, and municipal initiatives to enhance their capacity to face environmental and financial challenges. She has experience in mapping, extensive research, survey design and development, both qualitative and quantitative, data analysis, and professional training and development. Wow, you got a lot of stuff going on there, Michelle. Michelle also has experience conducting professional training, including board development, customer service, and community engagement. She also has experience facilitating conversations to think strategically about future planning in both the private and nonprofit sectors. Michelle's research focuses on a solid, including wasted food and recycling and environmental equity issues, such as access to clean, safe water and environmental health programs. Michelle graduated with a Master's of Public Administration and a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Wichita State University. So Michelle, go ahead and take us away.
Thank you so much, Kirk. I appreciate the introduction. Let me get my screen going here. Okay, can you see the slide there?
Yes.
I have two screens going, so I'm always trying to make sure that I shared the correct one so that you don't see the chaos behind the presentation, right? Well, thanks so much, everyone, for being here today. I'm so happy to be presenting at this conference for the second time. So I know Kirk gave a little bit of a background, but I am from the Environmental Finance Center. Just a little background on who we are. EPA divided the country into 10 different regions, and each of those regions houses an environmental finance center that serves to deliver a lot of those services that Kirk was talking about, technical assistance, communication facilitation, research, all that fun stuff, and things that go to support environmental programs, projects, ideas in the communities within our region. We are the Environmental Finance Center for Region 7, which is Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. So we do projects with water and wastewater utilities, state, communities, nonprofits, all over all 4 of those states. And we even do some stuff a little bit nationally. We're a part of a couple of national projects that provide us the opportunity to talk with people around the country about all that good stuff. And so all that range of projects allows us to do focus on all kinds of things, from how water and wastewater utilities are operated to researching possible funding strategies and other types of applied research that can really help our communities with environmental issues such as watershed health, food loss and waste, pesticides, source water protection, those types of things. And so as part of our projects with watersheds, rivers, and source water health, the Environmental Protection Agency for Region 7 provided us with the opportunity through their Trash-Free Waters program to conduct a small snapshot study of litter in Wichita. And so the Trash-Free Waters program is an EPA program that works to reduce and prevent trash from entering our waterways and flowing eventually into the ocean. And so EPA provides help and assistance to states and municipalities, organizations such as the Environmental Finance Center, and citizens to come together to explore how we can reduce litter, how we can keep it out of the water. And so whether we're right on the beach or in a landlocked place like Kansas, trash-free waters is an important topic for the health of our communities in total, and us as a planet. And so when we think about trash-free waters and how do we keep marine debris and aquatic trash out of the oceans, kind of well, we're in Kansas, we're not close to the water. How what does that really have to do with us? The thing is, 80% of marine debris originates on land. So through wind and pedestrian litter, transportation, improper disposal, etc., trash can find its way from our cities, from our parks, from our homes into the waterways. waterways and into the oceans. And that litter pollutes our environment from our source water, which is the water that our utilities are pulling from to treat, to give us clean drinking water, to ecosystems, both tiny and large, which has an incredible ripple effect when those ecosystems are polluted, and then our food chains. The pollution, particularly microplastics and microfibers and things like that, can get into our food systems, and that can cause some real problems. So all of these things impact us on both a community level and a global level. So when you think about here in Wichita, you know, we have a lot of little rivers that are tributaries of these larger rivers, but the Arkansas River is one that flows right through Wichita. And so it is one of the largest tributaries of the Mississippi River. And so when trash gets into that, it will flow directly down to the Mississippi and directly down into the Gulf of Mexico, where the currents drag it out into the ocean. And so I like to tell people, you know, we hear about the large amounts of debris that's floating in our oceans, these big vast swaths of trash that's the size of a small state. There's trash from Wichita in there. So really thinking about that, and Wichita is one of the major cities that are situated along the banks of the Ark River. And so when we think about the size of our community and the number of people and the industry and all of that in Wichita, there's a real effect on that. So the Ark River flows directly through Wichita. Much of Wichita's development plans are including incorporating the river into our community life with residences, businesses, activities, all those kinds of things. So understanding that there's already a direct amount impacting the river right now, and there will be in the future, thinking about how we can make sure that we keep that litter out of the river is an important thing. So Wichita is home to 126 parks that include a variety of open spaces. They total over 5,000 acres, and many of them are directly adjacent to, or at least close to, the river, or even some of the very small that eventually drain into the river. And so Wichita, in all of these parks, there's a multitude of land uses, such as recreation centers, swimming pools, skate parks, playgrounds, athletic fields, picnic areas, biking and walking paths. And all of these different uses bring a variety of people to our parks in Wichita. And so when we consider that there's a large population, 400,000 people roughly in the Wichita area, and all of these parks and their proximity to the river, Wichita is kind of an ideal place to study litter in a municipality that starts on land. So a few years ago, at the request of community members, the city of Wichita started the Plastic Bag Task Force, whose purpose was to kind of consider the effects and feasibility of banning plastic bags in Wichita. And as the task force proceeded, it was determined by city council, as well as Plastic Bag Task Force, that a study on the types of litter would be important before we really start regulating or creating ordinances or getting up to a ban. So we were engaged by the city at the Environmental Finance Center, and we then engaged with EPA Region 7 to be able to procure some funds to complete the study. And so we engaged with the city of Wichita as well as community members to bring a study together. So our methodology for this study is is a stratified random sample. And so what we did was we looked at a different strata, and the city council districts in Wichita, which there are 6 of them, were the strata for which we started determining parks. And then we chose 12 parks through engaging with community members, with city council members, with Parks and Recreation, and a variety of other groups around the city to try to identify some parks that would be ideal or recommended for this study. And then we took those parks down to a small targeted area that was roughly 35,000 square feet, so that we could get a very specific site with which to gather data. And each of those parks had a variety of land uses. So some were a little more natural based, some were more activity based, etc. Our locations were scattered all throughout Wichita. The different colors of the markers show the different districts. So the purple, for example, the purple is City Council District 1. So there were 2 parks in each district, and we scattered them all throughout Wichita, so that we could just kind of these little samples from the whole area. The study relied on volunteers. So we engaged with our citizen scientists to gather data, and it was intrinsic to the study. And so our recruitment was, we had a website with social media. We put out a press release in conjunction with the city of Wichita. The mayor gave a briefing, and we had some news and television articles throughout the data collection process to continue to engage the community, so they could know that there were those opportunities. Volunteers needed to be trained in order to make sure that they were collecting data correctly, per the quality control measures that we adopted. And so there was first a waiver that they had to sign so that they understood the purpose of the study. They engaged with an online data collection training video so that they understood how to log data, how to collect it, and also some safety information. And then at each data collection event, we did a recap of how to collect the data and safety measures as well. And so we continue to engage with volunteers on a variety of ways, because we had them sign up with the volunteer waiver as well as the data collection training. We were able to reach out to them via email about data collection events. So for example, we gave a map to the location, where to park specifically, what the weather was going to be, with a reminder to bring water and make sure they wore sunscreen, because we did this in June and July. And as we know, June and July in Kansas can be a bit unforgiving. We also sent out, because we had in total 24 events, there was continual, hey, there's some more events coming up. If you have some time, come on out and help us. We also helped promote other collection events around the city that tend to be volunteer-led, and we engaged with social media as well. So the events consisted of starting with the site coordination. So each data collection event had a site coordinator who got there before all the volunteers. They set up the boundaries. They made sure all the supplies were there. Our volunteers came. They got a reminder of how to collect data, as well as safety instructions that were both general and specific to the location. So if there was a bank or rough terrain, we were sure to tell our volunteers to be mindful. There was a set time to start and finish. It was 9 to 11 a.m. So we could finish before then, but the end time was 11 o'clock, which we never went past. Usually, generally our cleanups only took an hour to an hour and a half. And for that data quality, we had to make sure that that targeted area, that 35,000 square feet, was 100% clean. And if it wasn't, why we weren't able to. So an example of that is, there were some areas that we were unable to get 100% clean because there were pieces of metal buried far into the ground, even though the top of it we were able to see. So trying to pull that out of the ground not only was difficult, but was a hazard. So we alerted the city of Wichita whenever we saw things like that, for them to hopefully go out to take care of that. So our data collection log, this over on the side, is kind of an example of the log that each of our citizen scientists had. It's based off of EPA's Escape Trash Assessment Protocol. And so they would pick up a piece of trash. They would first determine if it was greater or less than 4 inches. If it was greater than 4 inches, then they determined what that was. So if they picked up a styrofoam beverage cup, they would look on the chart for foam. They would look for cups. Then they would determine if it was fully intact, partially intact, or fully degraded, and put a tally mark, just one tally mark. And they did that for all the pieces that they found in those targeted areas. If a piece of data that they collected was less than 4 inches, it went into a bucket that we measured volumetrically. So the data that we collected, we picked up 1,743 pieces of data that was greater than 4 inches, which I found to be pretty impressive. There were some locations that there was very little large trash at all, and then there were some locations that we had bags full. The largest of the materials that were picked up the most were single-use plastics, excuse me, and other and paper were not far behind, were the next were the next amounts with at 19% there. Other consisted of a lot of variety of things, particularly textiles. We had to joke because at almost every location we found at least one sock, which I thought was kind of interesting. And tobacco products were not cigarette butts. That was part of the volume data. But other things such as full packs of cigarettes or cans from chewing tobacco or vaping products was the majority of the other or mixed category. The medical supplies there did consist of disposable masks. The other mixed categories, that would have been where cloth masks would have been found. So the medical supplies, most of them consisted of rubber gloves or disposable masks. For the volume, we picked up each person had a bucket that you can see in the picture there. It was a 5-quart bucket. We picked up 24 completely full buckets. So that averaged about 1 full bucket per cleanup event. Some events had a little bit more, some had a little bit less. And we did pick up more buckets in the July collections than we did the June collections. And the majority of the things that we found that went into those buckets were fireworks wrappers and cigarette butts. So cleaning up after 4th of July parties. The largest industry that we picked up data from was food and beverage. Other and unknown, that includes your textiles and a variety of different things that just doesn't really have its own category. There was a little illegal dumping in the form of building supplies, and then the retail category, actually that should, at the bottom there, that should just say retail, not retail food and beverage. I apologize for that. Retail was anything that you might have gotten from a grocery store or Walmart or something along those lines. As far as condition, most of what we found was still intact. Only about 21% was degraded, and the partially intact, partially degraded was often broken. So this is important to consider how long trash is being there. In some of our locations, we noticed that everything was still intact because it's likely blown in from businesses across the street or trash cans down the road. So there's a variety of ways that we can interpret how the condition of these items that we picked up could be utilized. So over time, and I apologize for the intensity of this slide. There's a lot of information on there, but we did see between the June and July, we saw an increase in plastics, foam, paper, and others, and our volume metrics. Volumetric collections did go up, but we did see a decrease in medical data, glass, and metal between the June and July pickups. So what any kind of intervening variables that may have contributed to this increase and decrease are still a little vague. We do know that a little bit of wind had something to do with it, and maybe some other social characteristics between the two that may have contributed to these changes. Part of our report is to look at recommendations. What can we do to decrease this litter and this littering problem in Wichita in order to keep that stuff out of the river, out of our storm drains, and properly disposed of? The first one is volunteer coordination. Several of the people that participated with us lead volunteer groups for cleanup events around the city. And they have mentioned that being able to coordinate with each other, maybe through the city or something like that, to really have an impact with their volunteer groups would be something that they would like to pursue. Signage. There's very little in the way of signage encouraging people to not litter in the parks. Community education, by talking with the community about the effects of litter and why our trash needs to be properly disposed of, can be a very powerful tool. Extra trash cans. One of the things that some of our volunteers and other community members that we talked with mentioned was that on some of the more natural places where there are bike paths and walking paths, there are no trash cans along the paths. And even though that might kind of make the view a little less appealing, those trash cans could provide an opportunity for bikers, walkers, runners, etc., to have a place to dispose of their trash properly. And finally, further study could be done. So this litter study is a quick snapshot at what kind of litter is around Wichita in very small areas for such a large metropolitan area. So it would be beneficial for the city and communities around the city to kind of dig into this in a bit more specific ways to determine the extent of litter in the area. But it does have some future application. This is a snapshot kind of look. So this is a great way for communities to start looking at litter and a good methodology for just kind of understanding that moment in time, look at what litter is looking like in the community. And then again, further study and research to understanding how these things are impacting our communities and continuing to research implementing intervention policies, practices, and programs to reduce litter in our area. That's the extent of the Wichita Litter Study. We'll have a formal full report out by the end of next month, which will be on the EFC's website, which you are welcome to check back there to try to find that. And if you would like that sent to you, by all means, reach out and let me know. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I appreciate that. Why don't we hold any questions till the very end? And so we have our next presenters, and I think you guys are going to tag team on us here, I believe. So we have two. It's Tanya Dorf Brunner, who has served as Executive Director of Oral Health Kansas since 2009. Tanya and the Oral Health Kansas team advocate for Medicaid dental benefits, educate Kansans about the importance of oral health, promote the benefits of safe drinking water and community water fluoridation. Tanya is a co-founder and past chair of the American Network of Oral Health Coalitions, a national organization dedicated to supporting and promoting the work of state oral health coalitions. Tanya holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science and a philosophy from Bethany College and a Master of Science in Management from Baker. And our other presenter is Jenna Gordon. She's an intern on the Thirsty for Health project. She's an honors student at Washburn University. Jenna is working towards an English secondary education degree. So you're going to help me with this, right, Jenna? I need all the help on this. So let's see, Jenna is part of a Washburn LA&C Bonner Scholar Program, is a vice president of the debate team. Oh, that's even better. And is a secretary for student organization URGE. Her service on work and off campus focuses on making school environments more functional to the needs of students and staff. So thank you guys. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Kirk. I'm excited to be here with you today. Let me get my screen pulled up here. Jenna and I are really excited to be able to be with you and talk about a different sort of a project around water, but I think there's going to be a little bit of an overlap that you'll see as we get into this. So our project is called Thirsty for Health. And I want to start by just describing the partners in this project. There are we've got many organizations supporting our work, but three core partners: Oral Health Kansas, which you already heard a little bit about; USA Kansas, which is the United, oh my gosh, my computer is dying, hang on. That's terrible. Okay, trying to plug in, which is the United School Administrators Administrators of Kansas. They are the state association for school superintendents, principals, other school administrators. So they're a really important part of this project, which is all about how to increase access to water for students in K-12 schools. And our other partner is Community Action Incorporated. It's a poverty fighting organization in Northeast Kansas, based in Topeka, but covers several counties in Northeast Kansas. We are funded by the American Heart Association's Voices for Healthy Kids project, which is really very much dedicated to access to water for kids. So I'll start by just talking a little bit about why water is important to kids. I mean, we're all here because we believe in water, and we believe in having access to safe water, but let's just talk a little bit about the importance of water to kids. You can see here that mild dehydration, which is pretty easy to get for any of us if we don't focus on drinking enough water, can start to impair some of the aspects of brain function. We think this is telling that a recent national survey showed that more than half of US children and adolescents were inadequately hydrated. So that means that most kids are going to school every day, not having enough water in their systems. But this is, the whole point of our project is around student achievement, health, and access to safe water. So here's a few more of our facts. And we'll be able to get these slides to you, so you'll be able to have access to the links here as well. I think this is pretty interesting, and I think we all kind of intuitively know this, but this has really come to the fore as we've been working on our project, which is that headaches are one of the most common symptoms of dehydration. I think we probably all experienced that. We had the chance through our project to visit with school nurses this year, and as we've been talking with them, by and large, they say the most common reason students end up in the school nurse's office is because they're dehydrated. They come in, they say they have a headache. That's the normal complaint, and the nurses say, "Well, have you had any water today?" And they normally say, "No, I haven't." So that this is very real in schools right now, all across Kansas. Of course, here's a good fact from the CDC that drinking water supports healthy muscles, joints, tissues, improves digestive system. So it's not only cognitive functioning, but it's also just supports the entire body. This is just mind-boggling to me. On average, kids drink about 2.4 ounces of water when they drink from a water fountain. And so you've got a little image there. That's the size of one of those little condiment cups that you get when you get takeout food. And it makes sense. If you're going to a water fountain, you're not going to sit there for a long time. But if they have access to a water bottle filling station, along with cups and bottles, they will triple their water intake. That's what we're working on, is specifically access to water bottle filling stations. And we're going to talk quite a bit more about that here. We also think this is helpful to keep in mind. The National Policy and Legal Analysis Network, NPLAN, notes that kids develop habits at schools. So if schools can incorporate healthy habits like access to water, their kids are going to make that much more of a part of their life and make it a habit. This is a graphic that we at Oral Health Kansas came up with a couple of years ago that shows that if you drink a 120-ounce bottle of soda a day for a month, you've had the equivalent of a bag of sugar. And that's just kind of horrifying. But we also know that kids from low-income households are much more likely to be heavy consumers of sugary drinks than kids from higher income households. So this is a real equity issue that we think is important as we think about the issues around access. So as I said, water bottle filling stations is what we're working on. The Heart Association has done some research and has found that literally the germiest thing in a school is the water fountain. It's not the bathrooms, it's not the white light switches, it's not the lunchroom tables, it's the water fountains. That's always been the case, but the COVID pandemic has really brought this issue to the fore, as we've realized that we've got to keep ourselves safe and free of germs. And most school districts, I think, have pretty much blocked off water fountains in order to keep people safe. But that again is one more way that it's hard for people to have access to water if those water fountains aren't available, which is why I'll talk about water bottle filling stations. We at Oral Health Kansas did a similar project around access to bottle filling stations. It included a lot of educational programming as well. And when we began the project, we did pre and post test when we began and ended the project. And we were able to show that after having access to the bottle filling stations, having access to understanding the value of water, students were drinking a lot more water during the school day as a result of that intervention. So the other thing we want to think about is water bottle filling stations really need to be the filtered sort. I don't need to read all this to you, and I'm sure the issue about lead in the pipes is pretty common for most of us now that we're, we saw the terrible things happening in Flint, Michigan, and those issues are still going on. That first quote is just kind of staggering, that the drinking water is even more at risk in Kansas. What we know is that if the water that comes out of a water treatment plant is safe. The highly trained professionals know exactly what they're doing. The water is coming out is safe. It's the pipes that can be the problems. With water fountains, the water can be filtered, but it's filtered before there's still more pipes it goes through before the student will drink out of the fountain. But if you have a water bottle filling station, it's filtered at the moment you pour the water out of the station. So it's the most safe water that you can get if it's properly filtered. And then this is just a little bit more about filters. Why lead is dangerous. Why we need to make sure we're keeping kids safe. I think you probably know most of these things, but it's important to just reiterate them for you. And this is what I'm excited now to pass it over to my colleague, Jenna, who's going to talk about what the community is looking for in water bottle filling stations and some of her personal experience.
Okay, hi everybody. So we can go on to the next slide. I'm Jenna, and I got a lovely introduction by our moderator. So a little bit of this information might be repetitive, but I'm a student honors honor vice president of our debate team and secretary of the student organization URGE at Washburn University. I'm also a graduate of Topeka West High School in Topeka, Kansas. So I have had a decent amount of experience in the Kansas educational community. And specifically, I have a number of experiences about filtered water bottle filling stations that I would love to share with you today. And I'm also an English secondary education major, which means that I have a vested interest in continuing this work in the future. You can go ahead to the next slide. So when I was in high school, I was president of my debate team, and we worked long hours after school doing speaking drills. And as you'll see in the background of a lot of these slides, I've got cute little pictures of my debate team from high school. Next slide. So my school happened to be one of the ones that had filtered water bottle filling stations, which was exceptionally important to my development as a competitive speaker. So debaters practice speaking at 350 words per minute, which is more than twice the speed of normal speech. Debaters are also encouraged to speak loud, to come off as confident and persuasive. Without water, those long nights of practice would have been impossible. Many of us would have lost our voice, but fortunately we did have consistent access to water within the building that we had practice in. Next slide. So my high school success in debate and forensics gave me a pathway to go to college for free. I now debate for Washburn University on scholarship. And you can see in the little picture my college debate team. Next slide. So water bottle filling stations played a bigger role in my ability to compete than you'd think. I used them every day when I competed at schools that didn't have them. I would consistently lose my voice at the end of a tournament, and water access in high school had a huge impact on me. I can attest that there are many schools around the state that should have filtered water bottle filling stations, but don't. So I'm really excited to get to work on this project. Next slide. So I conducted some interviews with members of my high school community to see how filtered water bottle filling stations were impacting them post-COVID. And we're going to share a little clip of one of those interviews with you. But if you're interested, there are more interviews on our website, which we will provide a link to at the bottom. But yeah, Mr. Lake has some insightful things to say.
Yes, yeah, it's been a significant improvement for a number of reasons. One, students can just fill up their water bottles once and then they have it for the rest of the day. So there's a lot less trips out of class, losing instruction time to go get as much of a mouthful of water and then come back. Especially this year, our other water filling stations are like the traditional water fountains are closed out because they're a contact point with COVID. And so the only way to get water right now is through those filling stations. So we were able, because we had those, to just get some refillable ones that we could give to students, and then they would have that for the whole year. Whereas I imagine other schools that don't have that would have to like use plastic water bottles and just keep handing those out. And then they have to get thrown in the trash and then they get a new one, which creates an enormous amount of waste.
Next slide.
You think that?
Yeah, sorry.
No issue. So a lot of members of our community have expressed being pretty happy with the situation when they have filtered water bottle filling stations. And the majority of people see the benefits of water access as well. A national survey found that 96% of individuals aged 17 and older supported required access to water throughout the day in schools. So this is not just a matter of health equity. Students across the state are being put at a disadvantage for high school success that could lead to college financial opportunities. Students who participate in things like singers, band, theater, sports, forensics, debate, or any other after-school activity could not perform as well without access to water. And those programs are the inroads to financial stability in college. So I appreciate you letting me present at this conference about our community's experience with filtered water bottle filling stations. And I hope that the voices of students and staff will help contextualize the importance that these systems have on our daily lives. Next slide.
Thanks, Jenna. So I'll pick it up here. So this is the so what. What we're working on is a proposed policy that we are asking school districts across the state to adopt. And it's a future-focused policy that, that would ensure that all newly constructed school buildings and all school buildings undergoing refurbishment will have water bottle filling stations. And then you can see on the slide there the different numbers of bottle filling stations that are recommended. We think it's especially, I just want to kind of highlight that the issue about recreation and sports, because I was a part of a meeting not too long ago where I heard about a student athlete who didn't have access to a bottle filling station when she was running track and in the gym area. And she would have to just bring water bottles because she didn't have a refillable one. So she would just have to buy water bottles, but she couldn't afford them. So she was having a lot of trouble staying hydrated, staying healthy. And so it is back to an equity issue in that sense too. But I also think this ties in well with Michelle's presentation earlier about the waste in water and the power of the fact that it's powerful to understand that waste we have here in Kansas will still end up in the waterways. So anything we can do to make sure people have got refillable, a way to drink refillable water is going to be very helpful. And we do want to note here that the filling stations we're working on are the filtered sort. Funding, of course, is the issue. How the heck do you get funding for water bottle filling stations? One thing we didn't foresee when we began this journey was the CARES Act funding from the federal government includes something called ESSER funds. Looks like we have 5 minutes left, so I'll try to make this very fast. Those are funds that are meant for schools to improve their the learning experience and improve the facilities in order to make things more COVID safe. And you can see several other opportunities to look for funding for water bottle filling stations. Some schools are definitely already using ESSER funds, which is great, but in looking to the future, these others are good resources. As Jenna said, here's here's our website, oralhealthkansas.org/thirsty.html. You can check us out there. We're also all over social media, and you can check us out. And just lastly, here's Jenna's and my contact information. We've kind of hit our 15 minutes, so I'm going to stop and turn it back over to Kirk for questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys very much. I appreciate your presentation today. And so there has been some questions put in the chat box, and you guys have jumped through those and got those answered. But certainly, if as small as group we are, if you feel like unmuting and want to ask these questions directly, these guys, join, please. So a fantastic topic. When I went to school, the drinking fountain, there wasn't the fill stations and all that stuff. Maybe that's aging myself, but now you go give presentations at schools and stuff, and there are those fill your bottle stations, which I think is fantastic. And the presentation you gave, the information that about headaches and all that stuff, and the kids not drinking enough, I think that's probably very true. And we as adults too. I mean, we can substitute other things for water on occasion when we should be doing other things like my Mountain Dew right over here. So, but I do want to remind you guys, the presentations are being recorded, so this will all be available. So any of the links that you have in the presentations, anybody interested in those, we can go back into those, or you can go back and visit those. They're posted on office website, water office website. You'll be able to click on those and it'll take you to those. So, but any other questions anybody has at this point? Surely somebody's got something for these great presenters. Come on, don't be crickets. Come on, unmute yourself. Come on. Nothing? No, you guys. You just dazzled us with information. That's what I like that.
Hey, I have a question. I have a question for you, Tanya and Jenna. Are you coordinating with anyone for doing lead testing in schools?
Go ahead. You know this issue better than me. Go ahead, Jenna.
So it's actually quite difficult for us to get information on water quality, especially in individual areas across Kansas. We've made calls down to the utility department to try to figure out if we could get specific information that was region specific, and we have had not very much luck. So we would always be open to future collaborations with other groups to get that information, because it'd be super pertinent to the issue that we're talking about.
Yeah. And that's why, because of the complications, that's why we really think the filtered bottle filling stations are the ideal and really the necessary solution, because it's filtered at the moment the water comes out of the spigot. So it's the best possible solution. So it's because it's a mishmash. We all know the school buildings across the state are very, 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 decades old, or they were just built last year. So there's just such a mishmash of what's available. So filtered stations just make the most sense.
Yeah, great work.
Good question, Michelle. I do have a question for you, Michelle. There's a lot of movement towards biodegradable products, bags or containers, or companies that are working towards, a reusable, I don't want to say name brand, but reusable soda maker thing, whatever, I mean, is that going to continue, or are people satisfied with the amount of trash they generate? I mean, everybody does their part, but are they comfortable at that level?
One of the things that through my research and just my own conversations I've noticed is that people are very unaware of just how much trash they produce. I know that happened in my own family. Several years ago, I just kind of had this moment when I went outside to walk the dog, looked at the trash can, and was like, why is our trash can so full every week? My children were smaller, we didn't do a lot of packaged stuff, but I was like, or I thought we didn't. And I was like, this is ridiculous. So I did some research, did my own little home waste studies, like, holy cow, that's a lot of waste, because you don't realize it. Everything comes in plastic or wrappers, or, even stuff from the grocery store that you're trying to. So I think the start for a lot of this is to educate people and let them know that they're probably generating a lot more trash than they think they are. And then encouraging the use of refillable water bottles. That's a big one. There's an organization in St. Louis that is working to reduce food. Yes, that is working to reduce food waste and such. And they have a sticker. And so stickers on water bottles is like a huge thing now, right? And so you only get a sticker if you bring a reusable water bottle to put it on. So there's these kind of outreach to just really get folks to understand, one, the amount of waste that's generated, and then two, how to reduce that. You know, how do we go somewhere without taking a plastic water bottle with us? How do we have a picnic without a bunch of prepackaged food? How do we, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think that to address your point on biodegradables, I think educating people on what that really means is an important thing as well. And understanding compostables is a big one. So for example, people will buy compostable, disposable utensils, but when they put it in a plastic bag that goes into the landfill, it doesn't break down because it doesn't have access to what it needs to compost. But anywho, I'm talking all on and on and on, but yeah, there's a lot to it, Kirk, a lot to it.
Well, I agree. I truly agree. And I think truly we don't know how much trash we generate. You know, I'm going to age myself again. You know, my wife and I, we had a place and got a trash service, and we got this small dumpster, and then maybe 5 or 10 years later, oh, the trash dumpster grew because there was a need by people to have and then, oh, here 5 or 10 years later, here comes a bigger dumpster. So now the dumpster we have is huge, 95 gallons or something. We never fill it, but that's what they supply. So it's like